More drone sightings are being reported now as far west as Utah. Intelligence officials say they are starting to get a clearer picture of what at least some of these sightings may be, but some remain convinced, however, there still is more we just don't know. ABC News transportation reporter Sam Sweeney joins me now. Sam, what's the latest on these drone sightings, and what are intelligence officials saying now about them?
Well, Phil, everybody wants to know what these potential drones are that people are continuing to report. But at this hour, it is still unclear what they are. Intelligence officials have been going through thousands of tips, and the FBI says most of these tips have really led to nothing. What they have found is that most of these sightings are legal drones. More than 1 million drones are owned by people across the United States. They're registered with the FAA. They can fly them during the day. They can fly them during the night. And that's what many of these people are seeing. They're also seeing manned aircraft, so commercial airliners, private jets, small single-engine aircraft flying at night. And that is perfectly okay. And you can check that using home radar. So they're asking people to, before calling 911 or the FAA, to use flight tracking apps and see if there is a plane in the air near where you are standing if you think you see a drone. They're also asking people not to take things into their own hand. Don't shine lasers or fire a weapon at these aircraft, because chances are they are just a civilian aircraft that's flying near your home or wherever you are seeing these drones. But intelligence officials briefed lawmakers on Capitol Hill yesterday for more than 3 hours. And when they came out of that briefing, they said, look, it appears that the federal government really doesn't know much about these. They're investigating, but they simply don't have any information, and they do not believe that it's anything nefarious.
Sam, the Pentagon says it is now deploying additional counter-drone systems. What do we know about that?
One of the systems they use is what's known as a drone buster. And if you know what a radar looks like, that you'd see a police officer shooting at cars on a highway to determine speed, that's what this drone buster does. And what it does is takes control of the signal. It disrupts the signal between the remote control, the operator, and the drone, and they can force it to land. And that's what they're using near some of these military installations to bring these potential drones down that could interfere with base operations or incoming aircraft.
All right, Sam Sweeney, thanks so much. This is just a mystery that people will not stop talking about. We appreciate it. Congressman and member of the Four Country Caucus, Zach Nunn, joins me now for more. Congressman, hey, how you doing? Listen, you are a colonel in the Air Force Reserves with 20-plus years experience in Air Force intelligence. You were also involved in the drone program, so your credentials are right up there with the folks we need to speak to. What do you make of these drone sightings, and do you think they pose any kind of security threat?
Look, Phil, here's what we know at this point. We know we are living in a post-9/11 world where we had an expectation that the U.S. government was going to be able to work across agencies to deliver answers to the American people. Right now, we have folks in the New Jersey State Police who have intercepted these drones and been told there's nothing to see here. We have a U.S. Coast Guard cutter that was surrounded by more than a dozen drones off the coast of New Jersey, reported it, and again, these were dismissed by the White House. Right now, we have an FAA who is responsible for airspace management, pointing fingers at a Department of Defense who's pointing fingers at an FBI. At this point, we need resolution, and clearly we need leadership coming out of the White House to provide real answers that are clear, that are transparent, and that are responsible for folks, whether you're the governor in New Jersey or whether you're kids on the Jersey Shore. They deserve an answer. And now it's taking over and shutting down air bases across the United States. Equally, we need to have a real response here in the United States, because the second thing I know is that the majority of drone technology is coming from China. Nearly 90% of it, both the hardware and the software. And other drone technology, like the kind we saw come out of Iran that launched nearly 300 weapon systems at Israel this year, and tragically killed 3 U.S. service members in northern Syria at the beginning of this year, resulted from a drone technology that came online because Iran and other actors found a space for this. So the overseas threat is real. We want to make sure that doesn't end up on a domestic shore right here in the United States. Congressman,
you mentioned the White House. John Kirby from the Biden administration spoke to our George Stephanopoulos yesterday. Take a listen to what he had to say about the drones.
There are 1 million drones registered with the FAA here in the United States, and thousands upon thousands fly in our skies legally and lawfully every single day doing all kinds of good things for the public good. These drones, these aircraft are operating the way the FAA requires them to operate in U.S. airspace so that they can be observable and to fly safely. We are on this. We're working it hard. There's no national security threat we're seeing at this time and no threat to public safety.
So Kirby says they are being transparent. What do you make of that, first of all? And is it possible that maybe not this whole thing, but that part of this is overblown?
Yeah, Phil, I think that there's a real hysteria around here, but I blame that right back on the White House for not being clear and transparent with the American people. The reality is this is the same John Kirby who told us at the beginning of the year that there was no threat from China for a balloon that flew over our entire country. Equally important, we're now at a point where we've got to have real clarity to get down to brass tacks on what's happening. Here's the reality. We have the opportunity to make sure that we have an indigenous drone production capability in the United States because there are some great things they do. It's one of the bills that I led that was included in the National Defense Authorization Act, that we have the ability to keep out Chinese-made technology and incorporate more American-made solutions. I hope the White House can be a leader on this. I know that President Trump has already highlighted this. The mass hysteria is a direct result of a lack of information surrounding this entire incident. Let's move forward, be clear, be transparent, and let's start making drones right here in America that help our first responders, law enforcement, and everyday hobbyists like my kids fly a safe drone and not shut down major airports because the FAA clearly at this point is unclear on what the situation over the skies of our cities and communities are.
You mentioned law enforcement. I'm wondering, what are lawmakers hearing about all of this, and can law enforcement combat it in some way?
I mean, I think the case in New Jersey by New Jersey State Police is a clear example of where they sent a helicopter to investigate a very large drone operating over New Jersey. When they got within sighting of it, the drone shut off its safety lights, and the New Jersey State Patrol had to disengage for mishap safety of air situations. This resulted in, a rebuke by the White House to local officials there. Look, I'm a military guy. I've flown combat operations and training sorties. When we have a U.S. operation where we're testing out a new equipment, a new airframe, a new UAS, we do it in a closed and controlled airspace, and we inform the other parts of government, including the FAA, so that there's not this conflict of information. And as the White House has said, we've got more than 1 million drones. We should have some ability, particularly at the state and local level, to help guide, even regulate this, but certainly to understand what's flying over the homes and households of every American out there.
And Congressman, just before you go, a short-term government funding bill, as you know, was released yesterday to avert a government shutdown. The House will need to vote on it by the end of the week. Now we hear Elon Musk is coming out against it, saying, quote, this bill should not pass. I'm curious, what do you think of the whole situation, and will you support it?
Yeah, I talked to Elon earlier this month, and one of the things we are very focused on is government efficiency. One of the best parts of this bill, it's a piece that we led, it's going to be in the end of the year here, is one, it keeps the government open and makes sure that our military troops and forces are paid throughout this holiday season while they're on the front line and we're all enjoying safety at home, that they get their paycheck. Equally important, we've been able to get beneficial ownership, a Biden-era regulatory regime that would have cost every small business, Main Street, hometown family business, $500 per day per fine with up to 3 years in prison if they failed to report regulatory restrictions. These are the kind of clawbacks that we need, and making sure that the Biden administration is held accountable so that we don't have great Americans, 32 million small businesses in America end up getting a government fine on day one of January 2025. I'll also say there's really critically important pieces in here. Man-made disasters, but God-changing events that have resulted in things like our national disasters for folks living in Florida, California, North Carolina, my home state of Iowa, where tornadoes have ravaged it. We need to make sure that we can get that emergency aid out to families who need it this holiday season so they can start rebuilding, keep our economy going. And then we work really hard to make sure that we do the 3 things that I think are most important. Balance a budget like we do at home on our own credit cards, not put $36 trillion on the nation's debt, take care of border security, and take care of extending the 2017 Trump-era tax credit and cuts so that we can continue to grow our economy. These things are critical, and yes, are there certain things at the end of the year CR that all of us have consternation with? I would agree. But right now, we have to get a budget done. We have to do it in a responsible way that saves the taxpayers money, holds it accountable for their money and make sure that we reinvest in people who have just been devastated by natural disasters, including $10 billion going to farm families across the United States right now.
Congressman Zach Nunn, thanks so much for your time. Do appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.